For working with clients in a side-lying position, we need to consider draping and comfort. I like to put a pillow under the client's head, and actually the face cradle works very well for that. And then also a pillow in between the client's knees, and you want it so that the top leg is level, so that there's no stress through the pelvis. And I like working on the client's back from this side while I'm still facing the client. What I will do is undrape the client's back, and if they're wearing underwear or clothing, I would tuck the drape in around the clothing. Otherwise, I just tuck it in like that. And then I can get the client, for women clients, to hold the drape like this for when I'm working on the back. For working on the back, I like first facing the client, and this way I'm in between Darla and the floor as I'm working. And I work on the side of the back that's closest to me. I can work on the erector spinae, going from L5 up to T1, working in fairly deeply with my fingertips, letting my whole hand contact, but the fingertips working in deep into the erector spinae, coming up the spine like this. I can also do some nice work with the forearm, coming on up and over the shoulder like this. And I like to do some nice work around the shoulder. I'll start with the client's arm draped over my forearm, and I can work first mobilizing the scapula, taking it over the rib cage. And for this, I like to get the client's arm up overhead and posterior as far as it goes comfortably, so that I'm pushing the scapula into the ribs. This works subscapularis and serratus anterior, which are the muscles in between the scapula and the ribs. After mobilizing it this way, I can do a nice stretch to serratus, where I push with the heel of my hand, locking on the ribs here on the serratus, and then coming forward right up to that axillary border of the scapula while twisting the scapula. Serratus is involved with rotation of the scapula, so it gets stretched out nicely while I do this. In this position, I can also work rhomboids, where I hook in next to the spine and come down and out while pulling the scapula away from the spine to work the rhomboids. I can get upper trapezius and levator scapulae this way, pulling the scapula down, getting a nice stretch. I can get rhomboids, and then I can come up and out to get lower trapezius. And all of this I do in a lunge position, so I'm just shifting my weight to the back foot as I do this. Working all the angles, working the muscles that go from the spine to the scapula. Now I like alternating this with the work for serratus, so I can work rhomboids, then serratus, and then rhomboids, and serratus. I call this the rhomboserratus rock. We're able to work both of these together in a nice rocking motion. And the rocking motion helps the client relax even more with this. This position also works well for working into the teres muscles, triceps, teres minor, teres major, all attached along this axillary border of the scapula. So I just stretch the arm overhead while coming down. Being careful right at the very tip of the scapula here where the axillary nerve is, but staying inferior to that. Also coming out across the infraspinatus like this can feel good. Then I can bring the client's arm down to their side and pull traction distal to the wrist and work into supraspinatus and levator scapulae like this, using the heel of my hand. And if I want to get an even better stretch, can I take away this pillow?
Mm-hmm.
I can take away the pillow from the client, if they're comfortable with that, and get an even better traction to the neck, working all the way up to the occipital ridge with the heel of the hand. And I can also do petrissage to the muscles on the back of the neck. And it's very important with this to stay posterior, not to get onto the transverse processes on the neck, because that can get very uncomfortable for your client. So stay more to the back of the neck for this. Another technique we can do as well is working into lats, latissimus dorsi, coming down like this into the low back while stretching the arm overhead. It's a great stretch that can be done in side lying position, where you get one hand around the scapula to be able to pull the scapula superiorly, and then the other hand, you get the heel of your hand right on the greater trochanter. Be careful not to be on the crest of the hip, that would pinch, but you can get a nice stretch through the hip socket if you're on the trochanter, and I'll be pressing inferiorly here. And then Darla, I want you to take in a deep breath and out. Notice I did the stretch as she inhales. With inhaling, everything opens up, and I just accentuate that opening. And then I hold the stretch through the exhale when normally everything would be contracting. I just hold it open. So I'll show that one more time here. I hook around the scapula, other hand on the greater trochanter. Now take in a deep breath and out. And then I gently release the stretch. For a nice stretch for quadratus lumborum, I like to get the client's top leg off the back of the table and their top arm overhead like this. This gives a nice stretch through the whole side of the body. And then I can work with the heel of my hand, working up through quadratus lumborum like this, working erector spinae and quadratus lumborum, and even working up into the ribs, up toward the axilla. And to maximize the stretch, I can gently push the client's knee toward the floor while doing this. It's a really good stretch through the low back. This also gives a good stretch to the fascia lata, gluteus medius, and minimus as well, and those can be worked in this position also. For a nice variation on the hip lift and glide technique, you can have the client's top leg off the back edge of the table, their bottom arm back behind them off the table, and rotated forward like this. Then I can take a hold of the ASIS and pull backwards on that while working up the side of the spine with the heel of my hand. Getting a nice twist to the spine.